And so that's why he's trying to divide us. Just a couple more here. It says self-control. They talk about things that hurt people, have no self-control, hate and cruel. Instead of loving God, they love pleasure. You know, devoted not to change their life for the good, but for the bad. You know, you read this for yourself. Fight against the truth. It talks about how women are being treated. And this is all in 2 Timothy 3. Read it for yourself. Just read it. It's just 9 verses. Read it and then compare it to what's going on in the world today. And you're like, wow, this is today. You don't have to believe it from me. Turn on the news and you'll see it. Please go to the next slide there. So this is the beginning of the end. So the Bible says all these things are going to happen in the beginning, and in the beginning of the end is all this tribulation that we're going through, all this troubles. Then we come into the point of the rapture. I asked a question before some of you came in here. When the last time you heard of the word rapture? It's been a long time. And it's not because people have forgotten. It's because this is the enemy's trying to change our thoughts about it. A lot of people don't believe the rapture is going to happen. We have a generation who have no idea what the rapture is. What does 2 Thessalonians say? 2 Thessalonians 4. Read it for yourself. What it says. So the Lord himself should descend. You know what people say when they read this scripture, some people? Not us, because we know what's about to happen. People are scared of that. They say you're fearing them. You're trying to put fear in them. I'm not trying to put no fear in them. We're saying the Lord himself is coming back. Is that a false statement? Now, we don't know when it's going to happen, but we do believe it's going to happen. And here's the problem is that people don't believe it's going to happen. They say, oh, that doesn't mean for us because that's already happened. Or they kind of say, you're just trying to scare. Now, some of you remember back in the 80s and the 90s when we heard about sin, you heard about the rapture, and it did scare you. It did scare you because we needed to be scared. And I'm going to tell you a little story why we need to be scared today even more and why we got to hear it even more. It's because there is no fear. My wife tells me a story when her mom and dad had communion here. And for those who remember how we used to do communion here, close the door, put papers on the door, pull the shade down. The hooks are still there. Pull the shade down on the door right there. And we did the foot washing and everything like that. Well, my wife tells me a story that when she was little, they all had to stay home. You couldn't come to church unless you were saved for the communion. And they all had to stay home. And her mom and dad now was at church so long, they thought the rapture had taken place. And they're crying and panicking and everything. It's a good fear. It's a really good fear. You should have that fear because it's going to happen. And if it scares you enough to say, oh, I got to look at my own self and see if I'm ready, then so be it. Go to the next scripture there, the next slide there. This is something that you need to be afraid of as we talk about the troubles are coming. You heard of the doomsday clock. What Bishop was talking about Sunday is exactly what's starting to happen. The doomsday clock. So the doomsday clock is a clock that they actually created after the atomic bomb was dropped over in Japan. They said, we're in the atomic age now. Man has developed a tool that can destroy themselves. And so they created this clock. It's not an actual shows you a symbol of how close we are to destroying ourselves. And the clock strikes midnight, that means we are already at that point where we're going to destroy ourselves. Now, how do you think we're going to destroy ourselves today? Nuclear weapons. Yeah. Nuclear war is going to kill at least a third of the earth, if not more. If even someone survives, if you survive that, you might die of radiation, or you die of a nuclear weapon. Chances are, if you do survive, I don't know what kind of life you're going to have. You can't grow nothing, you can't eat anything, you can't drink anything. This is something they taught in the military. They tell them it's going to happen. Man has never, ever created a weapon for war that he's never used. The other day, this was actually January, the date's on there, Friday, January 23rd, they got together and they said, we have to move the clock closer to midnight. This is the closest the clock has been to midnight, even closer than it was during the Cuba crisis when Kennedy was president. It's even closer now, which means is the world is in so much trouble right now, it's just a matter of time when someone decides, I had enough, and pushes that button to destroy the world. That's how close we are. Please go to the next slide. So when we talk about the end times, we're talking about something that is very present. Now, let me go back a few years. November of 1983. There's an event that happened in November of 1983 here in the United States. This was before the internet was I don't even think the internet was even out. I know computers were out at the time, but in 83, they showed a television show called The Day After. And what the show was about, it was about a nuclear attack here in the United States. And at that time, the movie theater showed how graphic everybody was going to burn up. You're just going to be ashes, how things was destroyed. People in the United States were so afraid to watch this movie. Over 1 million people did watch the movie, 39 households. They would get together with friends, or they would come to church, or they'd go to movie theaters because they didn't want to be alone. It was that terrifying that United States is so close that we can actually go to war. It was so terrifying that people started calling TV stations and telling them, do not air it anymore. They had to set up 100 phone calls for people that needed counseling. People was terrified that this was going to happen. Some didn't go to school, they didn't go to work. They was terrified that this can actually happen. And this was just a television show. Could you go to the next slide for me, please? Right after that, in March of 1984, there was a magazine that used to go around called the Plain Truth Magazine. Some of you may remember it. It was actually published by Herbert W. Armstrong. He used to come on the radio. And when I was a kid, we used to get those magazines. And he developed that Worldwide Church of God. And he was a very, very strong Bible guy. And he came out with an article in this magazine called The Plain Truth. It was a free magazine that came out about that. And he wrote about this TV show. He's been telling people that the Lord is coming and we need to prepare. And he's been saying that for a long time. Please go to the next slide. So Herbert W. Armstrong stated in that magazine that there is a way to escape. He publicized this magazine saying there's a way to escape. People called him and told them to cancel their publication because they didn't want to believe that God can take a person out of the situation of a nuclear attack. Now, this was right after that movie. They didn't believe that God can save the country from a nuclear attack. A lot of people didn't believe that. Some people was calling him, telling him, move my name out of that. But this is what he says here. He says the TV movie, the day after, have shaken the world from his, it says, from his complex and different stumble, like they were asleep. And he's saying you can't escape. They got so shook up, they finally realized that we could kill ourselves, that people was kind of in a slumber. That's what we're doing now. We're in a slumber. A lot of people don't believe the rapture is going to happen. They don't believe that we're going to have a nuclear attack. They don't believe that when these things happen, that no one's coming to rescue us. You think the government is going to be able to rescue us if something happens in this country? A lot of people think the government will. Ask the people in Katrina. There's not enough government to come and rescue you. You're going to be on your own. That's why they're telling you if there is a disaster, you're going to have to survive for at least 3 days or even more on your own. Not even Katrina. Think about all the other things that had happened. Could you go to the next slide for me, please? Remember 9/11? I'm sure everybody remember where you was at that day if you're old enough to remember the 9/11. But when 9/11 happens, when that attack happens, people flooded the churches. Bishop, I don't know if I was on a Tuesday, if your church got flooded, but a lot of people having prayer, and the churches were full. People came off the street because they wanted to be around other people so they could pray. They needed comfort. They've never seen anything like this before. I've never seen anything like this before, where planes are crashing into buildings, people dying. We didn't know when it was going to end. I was working at the gas company at the time, and I was on my way to work when Rhonda called me and said, hey, there's a building hit the Trade Center. Well, I know years ago there was a building hit the Trade Center. I thought it may have been a small plane. So I go in my office, and I go in the conference room. TV's already on because everybody's standing in there. And we're talking about this, and next thing you know, we see the second plane hits the building. And then the panic starts. People say, oh, no, this is not purpose. This is attack. People start crying. We're not even in New York, and there's people around me crying. They're trying to call their families to see what's going on. Then we heard about the other planes missing and so forth. I was out in safety at the time, and I get a phone call from the guard shack. Say, hey, you need to come get this phone call. It's IMPD. It's the police department. They're calling, and I go to the phone. I say, can I help you? They said, can you protect that gas holder out there? Well, we used to have a gas. If you ever been on the south side, remember the big blue gold gas holder? It's full of gas. I tell him, there's no way to protect that. He said, that's the biggest bomb in the city. I said, yes, it is. He said, can you at least close your gates and don't let anybody in to your facility? He said, that's the best we can do. And I said, yeah, we can do that. That's it. So when that day happened, the aftermath of that, you know, it hit the White House, hit the Pentagon and all of that, and then it crashed. Churches was there for the comfort of people. Days after, a lot of churches didn't close their doors for 24 hours, especially a lot of the Catholic churches in major cities, because people were coming in, getting on their knees and praying. What happened a good 2 or 3 months after this? Anybody remember? I mean, them churches continue to keep their doors open. People went about their ways. Went back. Some people don't even remember 9/11. They don't even talk about it anymore. It's just a history in the book now. But the day of that attack, people was looking for answers. And I always hope and pray at least somebody found salvation that day, you know. Somebody ran in some church in this country and they found salvation that day. But many of the people that came in went right back out into the world and did exactly what they needed to do. When New Orleans flooded, remember when they had the big flood from the hurricane? You know what they did? The first thing they did is took all the money and all the resources to go open up the bars. people living on the street, dead bodies still on the street. But they took all the money they can find and go open up the bars, open up the clubs, try to make things as normal. What's wrong with that? People wanted to have that good time. They didn't have no power, no running water, and yet they're trying to ice down beers, pour glasses of wine to people. This is the world we're in. Right around the corner from them, they got a pile of dead bodies. They're still waiting to be picked up. And this is true. You've seen the pictures. They had bodies. They just decided to take all the bodies and pile them up because they didn't have enough refrigerators to take them out of there in trucks, so they just left them in a pile, cover them up, and people walking by them heading to the bars. They're looking for something, but they don't know what they're looking for, so they retreat to alcohol and all the other things that they've done in the past. It would have been nice to say, oh, they opened up all the churches and let people come to churches. They didn't do that. They wanted them bars. They know that's where their money comes from. But then 9/11 happens. People were scared. People panicked. They ran into the churches. They're calling on God's name. A few weeks later, they're back out there doing exactly the same thing. We're going to have another one of these. There's no doubt. It's just a matter of when. People say, oh, that can never happen again. We just don't know what the beginning of troubles are. Go to the next slide for me. Remember this movie, Left Behind? When Left Behind came out, it was actually a book, a series of books. People got terrified of this movie. People was afraid to even look at the covers. This movie was kind of traumatic to a lot of people. They still scared of the movie. I don't know if you ever seen the movie itself, but the movie takes place on a plane where people in the plane just start to vanish. The pilot vanished, at least one of the pilots vanished. People sitting next to her, a lady was talking to her husband, she looked over, ain't nothing but a pile of clothes. She gets to screaming and hollering. People see this and they said, oh, that was just a movie. No, it's not just a movie. This movie touched some hearts. It's more than that because this is going to be reality. And we don't know the time or the day it's going to take place. And when Bishop was talking about the dollar and all these things are coming, it's just a sign that says we're getting closer and closer. Even these dates I'm showing you of these things that took place to remind you that Jesus is coming, people still not paying attention. Now, I could pull up today's news here in the United States, the BBC, you know. I can pull up an Al Jazeera news from all over the world, and it's all bad news. I love the Olympics when they come around because all the countries get together and they compete with the best athletes. That's the way I think war should be handled. You don't like my country, I don't like your country, okay, let's have the athletes compete. At least everybody goes home, you know? But if you really want to know what's going on, you have to pay attention. Don't look just what's going on in the United States. Don't look at this stuff that's going on up there in the dealing with ISIS up in Minnesota, stuff like that. You got to go deeper. Go to Al Jazeera. You know what Al Jazeera news is? This is news coming out of the Middle East. These people are not got news cameras standing there taking pictures like they do here. Excuse me. Where the reporter standing there with a microphone. These people are hiding their cameras, taking these pictures because they can get killed for doing what they're doing. And they're sneaking this news out of what's actually happening in the world. Yeah, go ahead, Bishop. Yes. Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes. Yes. hmm Not even bombs, balloons. Drones are coming up from South America. Have you seen those on the news? They're trying to say some of them was drug cartel drones. No. Like Bishop says, if this drone has a chemical weapon on it and it explodes, you don't know how many people it affects. You ever heard of a dirty bomb? I know you heard of it. In the military, they tell you about a dirty bomb. A dirty bomb is a chemical weapon that can affect a lot of people very, very quickly. It don't have to destroy buildings. All it has to do is get in the atmosphere. When COVID started, a lot of people thought it may have been a dirty bomb that went off. Some people still say it. It was a dirty bomb, and the government don't want to let you know that it was a dirty bomb that went off. That many people in that big metropolitan place of New York was affected more than anybody when it went off. Whatever happened there, and they claimed it on COVID. But this movie, even back then, I watched this movie, and I got a little nervous because I had to make sure I don't get left behind. And then there was series after that. Now, my girls at the time, they were too young to watch it, and I think they're at that age now where I should tell them, you need to watch that. They watch everything else, you watch this. Because what it's going to do is have you answer the question for yourself. Am I assured that I'm going to go in the rapture? Yeah, we go to church. We say we're saved. We do everything. But a lot of them people did too, even in this movie. In this movie, a pastor of a church did not go. He didn't make it. So he opened up his doors to let everybody else that didn't make it come in there, and they're all sitting on the floor crying and said, what did we do wrong? Now, this showed what the pastor did wrong. He wasn't true about him with his life. But the thing is, he didn't make it. And people was questioning, like, why didn't you make it? When this movie came out, some pastors was actually writing letters and making videos for their congregation, and they had rapture boxes. In case the rapture take place, somebody can get a hold of that video and tell them what's going on in this world. Because those who was left behind didn't know what was going on. Go to the next slide here, please. This is where we got to make sure we keep talking about the rapture. We keep talking about the days of trouble. I know our kids don't want to hear it. Grandkids don't want to hear it. We don't want to hear it. Our co-workers don't want to hear it. Rhonda got a saying, and I always laugh about her saying in this because she says it all the time. She said, oh, we won't be here. Is she right? Because we talk about stuff and we say, well, in the next 5 years, she said, we won't be here. We ain't going to have to worry about it, you know. But see, the thing is, I don't know if she's right or wrong. But to tell you what, I'd rather for someone to tell me I'm not going to be here than not tell me I'm not going to be here and I don't prepare myself. Because we don't know the day or the time. Now, of course, I'm not going to tell anybody I know the date, I know the time. There's too many people out there lying. Some guy in Africa just did that to a bunch of people here recently, had them sell all their stuff, give him all the money and stuff, and told the people go meet him out in the jungle somewhere because the rapture takes place. They all out there running around the jungle shouting and everything, and the rapture didn't take place. I'm like this. If you tell me the rapture coming, you don't need my money either. Why would you need it? If you believe you leaving, why would you need it? You ain't going to need it. You know, we laugh about it, but it's true. It's happening. And because of these last days, there are false prophets. There are those out there telling people and deceiving people. But we have to be careful. So now you know, what will you do? We may not hear the word rapture in here, but have you ever told your kids about the rapture? Do they know what 2 Thessalonians means? People say, oh, the rapture is not in the Bible. The word itself don't have to be in the Bible, but what's actually happening about is in the Bible. And the word rapture, if I'm not mistaken, Bishop, it was a word that came from a Greek word that actually means the word to be caught up, taken away. So when we talk about this, we have to take responsibility. Tell your grandchildren, you know the rapture is coming. We may go before the rapture, but who said they're going to go before the rapture? Let them know. Let them be afraid to say, hey, I don't want to be here. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. They said, oh, you shouldn't be having no fear in religion. Well, the Bible tells me the beginning of wisdom is to fear God, isn't it? So if I'm going to fear God, I'm going to fear his wrath. I'm going to fear what his word says and what's yet to come. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just common sense to know that it's going to happen. So you got a mission. Here's your mission. This is how you're going to stay focused. No longer chase after more. This is what this country is about. I want more, I want more, I want more than you. I'm going to compare myself to you so I can get more. That's wrong. It's really a sin to be comparing yourself to somebody else because you're envying that individual. You don't know how that person got what they got. You thank God for what he gives you and what he does not give to you. And you thank God for that. But we're in a time now where everybody wants more. I want more of this. I want more of that. If you're out seeking after more, chasing after money all the time, chasing after fame, popularity, you know it's on social media, it's all out there. You ain't got time for God then. They're getting so flamboyant in churches now. I saw a picture, and I still today don't know if this picture is real. Some pastor coming into church hanging down from some wires. Have you guys seen that? Them wires should have broke. Why? What is the shock behind that? What was the purpose of coming down, sending from the ceiling with some wires on? Is he trying to be a God sent, superhuman? There's too much of that going on, and people are not paying attention of what's happening because they're getting more and more entertained. Stop chasing after more, whatever that more is. Live a life wiser, calmer, and with unshakable purpose. Unshakable purpose. What is your purpose? Do you know your purpose? If you've been in the Lord a long time, you should know your purpose. But see, here's the key is we get tricked so much by the enemy. We think our purpose is to go out there, work a job, all them years, slave for the money, and then we die. They think that's our purpose. That's not our purpose. Our purpose is not just to buy houses and cars and take vacations and things like that. These are the things that are nice to do, but that's not your purpose. Your purpose was never have a bigger bank account than anyone else. Your purpose is to serve. That's your main purpose here, is to serve. Let God do his will. I'm sure Bishop can give us 10 more reasons what our purpose is. But you got to have that unshakable purpose. You got to know why you're here up on this earth at this particular time. It wasn't just coincidence that you was born when you was born and you're here now. It's not a coincidence. That's part of God's plan. I tell all the young people, I said, you got to learn what God's plan is for your life, not what your plan is. Ask God to reveal his plan to you. Ask God to keep you on track of that plan. Even when you get beyond your 60s and you realize I spent more than half my life chasing after these things, and I still need to know, God, you still got me on the right track. You still giving me peace. You still giving me comfort. When you get up in the morning, you thank God for getting up in the morning. When your feet hit the ground, the devil and hell should tremble because God knows that you're there to serve his purpose. That's unshakable purpose. People shouldn't come to you and be able to tell you something that you know is not God. There's too many people out there trying to sell you things. And what it is the devil knows his time is coming to an end. And there's more and more of his demonic tricks are happening now. And people are getting more and more blind to it. And so you got to tell your children, what's your purpose? You got to understand that. People know your purpose. Know how you know that people knows your purpose? Because they come to you and they're going somewhere else. Someone called me yesterday, said, can you pray for me? Why did you go to someone else and ask them to pray for you? It's because they can see that unshakable purpose, that they know if they come to me asking for prayer, I'm going to take it straight to God. They know that. And so that's why they come. So that's your mission, to make sure you understand what your purpose is. Time is the most expensive currency you have. You got to spend it wisely, because we don't know how much we got left. I tease Sister Edwards all the time about her hug bank. I give her a hug. I said, you filling up that hug bank? And then she gives it right back out and give you another hug. So you got to go back and give her another hug to keep her bank full. But thing is, that's the way it is with time. Only God knows how much we have left in that bank. And if we waste our time worrying about things we can't control, worrying about people we can't control, worrying about the world that we can't control, I don't spend my time worrying about what Donald Trump can do. Some people are so hung up on what Donald Trump can do. I look at what Donald Trump has done. Now, a lot of people say, oh, he's just a horrible person like that. I'm going to tell you something about Donald Trump. He took care of his kids. His kids are doing good. He did something right. I like Biden as a president, but Biden's kids, one of them was a drug head. He dropped the cocaine right in the White House. You know? Trump's kids are running business. They're doing good. So he was a father to somebody, even if he had to hire somebody to be the father of somebody. They all grown. They did okay. So I'll say something good about that. You know? But I don't focus on negativity, because God put him in the office for a reason. You got to remember that. God decides what happens in this world. Whether we like it or not, there's a reason why he's there. There's a purpose why he's there. And we got to understand is no matter who goes into those buildings in Washington, D.C., we know who we follow. We know who guides us, you know. So no matter if he's in that house or the house on the other side of the world, we still know who our God is. And so don't spend your time wasting it, because we don't know how much time is left. We got to look up. We don't look up enough. When the last time you just looked up at the sky, just bent back to take a look at the sky and just say, wow, that's just amazing. A music teacher told me one time, she said, we was in a music class, she said, y'all hold your heads up. She said, God made animals to keep their heads down. That's why a horse's head points to the ground, because God has not gave him the honor to look up at him. That's what animals do. Animals look down. God gave man the ability to look up at him and look up in the heavens. And you think about it, how many animals get to look up at the heavens? Their heads, which way their heads points? Their heads points down. But when she said that, and I was in probably the 7th grade, and I always remember that. But the thing is, you need to look up and remember something's greater is at work. You don't believe me? Look at the universe. What's happening to the stars? What's happening out there in space? What's happening with the seasons? People down in Florida are going crazy. Back here a few weeks ago, they out there cleaning snow off their cars. The iguanas are falling out of the trees. They're down in Miami with 30 degrees weather. People said, what is going on? Lake Erie froze completely over. They can't remember the last time Lake Erie, the entire lake froze. They can't remember when that ever happened before. Something's happening. And what it is preparing for the return. We don't know. We might start to get 15, 16 inches of snow every year, or even more. The whole world is shifting. We may be getting further and further away from the equator. We don't know what's happening with the earth. The one thing scientists do say is that the earth itself is actually sped up in its rotation. The earth is actually physically spinning faster than it's been ever before. We can't feel it. Stars are starting to move around in the heaven have never been moved before. All of a sudden, they're in a different place. Now, that's amazing to me. They've been tracking stars for probably ever since ships and things before that. I mean, maybe thousands of years they've been tracking stars. Greeks and stars tracking stars. I'm sure there might have been some Egyptians tracking stars. But now stars are moving. They're like, what's happening to the stars? Jesus is telling us something. When he said it in him himself is going to, Jesus, the Lord himself is going to descend. If the earth knows it's about to happen, and the heavens know, universe knows it's about to happen, why don't we understand? Why aren't we paying attention to the signs? So your mission is to start to let people know. Read it for yourself. It's all that information out there. Please go to the next slide. This is where your inner fire come in. Everybody know what the inner fire means? You remember when you said, I got the Holy Ghost, you know, feel it deep down on there? What's happening to your legs? Feels like what? Like fire in your legs? Sister David, what you talk about all the legs? The legs, if you had 10,000 legs, you know, something about that fire, that's your inner fire. That passion. We have to get that back. That's your mission, to find out what happened to that inner fire. This is a good example. You ever heard this before? One tree can make 1 million matches, but one match can burn 1 million trees. What does that mean to you? What does that mean to you when you say at least one tree can make 1 million matches, but one match can burn over 1 million trees? That's that inner fire in you. That's that Holy Ghost feeling deep inside of you. That's when you start to feel this rolling going on. You can't control it. I remember before I got the Holy Ghost, I was sitting right over here in the old pew. The first time I felt it, and this was way back in the early 90s, I got this cold chill that came over me. A cold chill. And the chill was so cold, I looked on my arm. I pulled up my suit sleeves, and I had cold chills on it, and it was feeling like something flapping in the breeze. And I just had to know it had to be some angel wings or something was all around me. And I jumped up out of the seat. Elder Smith was sitting over here. He stood up. And I ran to the aisle down here. And all I knew is that suit I had on felt brand new. I didn't know what was going on with me. God was preparing me for what was happening. Today, we got to understand, we got an inner fire in us. The mind works the same way when we're talking about that inner fire. Negative thoughts can destroy strength, years of strength, clarity, and peace. Someone can call you, tell you something very bad, and your whole day is shook up. And you can't get rid of it. Can't sleep. The next day you get up, you're thinking about it. And you go, what is going on? Somebody can get a call and says, so-and-so was talking about you. And they said this about you. And you know it's not true. But it shakes you up so much. It starts to mess with your mind. And you can't get no rest and get no peace. call on that inner fire. Say, no, this is not it. That's just enemy itself that's attacking me. Somebody told me one time, you know they talking about you? I said, I'm too old to worry about what people got to say about me. You know, I'm grown beyond that. I said, the good thing is they are talking about me because that means I got a blessing coming my way, and the devil's trying to tell them to get in the way of that blessing, but that's not going to happen because God has already ordained it, and it's already in my hands before I even know it. So talk about me as much as you want because I keep getting blessed over and over again about it. And so I don't have no problem with that. You can talk about all of us, you know, but make sure when you talk about us, put the name of Jesus in there as well. That says at least Jesus is on his side. You know, Jesus is carrying him to the next lane, you know. So you got to let people know that, oh, that's fine, talk about me. Say all the dirty stuff you want to do, but just put Jesus at the end of it so you can finish that sentence so he can continue to bless me. So just that's the way you got to understand. Keeping that stuff out of your mind because it will destroy you. That's called, you know what that inner peace is called? The power inner peace when you do have that clarity. And you can, it says, it's called the power of the inner fire. It builds or it can burn. When we talk about that one match that can destroy a million trees, think of that one match as you. You were made from a tree of a million, but it only takes one match to burn 1,000 trees. AJ, when you get up there, you only one man up there. But when the Spirit of God gets over you, and you get to sing those songs that draw people into worship, you can draw almost 1 million people to you. Somebody can hear that and take off and spread that word to someone else and say, did you hear this song? Or did you hear that, what happened there? That's that inner power that comes from that inner fire within you. Each one of us has to show that inner fire. We have to get back to that. We have to start to touching people, helping people, and tell them that you're greater than what you think you are. You're not the tree that is being turned into 1 million matches. You that match, because you got that inner fire. And don't let that match get exposed and start to burn. Because once it starts to burn, it can either burn to build, or it can just burn to destroy. And so you got to be ready for that. We're living in a day and time, and you already know this, that we're out of time. Someone said, what about the children? What about the children? What about the children during World War II, World War I? What about all them children that was in those crises? Did God decide, oh, well, I'm not going to have a war because of the children? No. We're in a war now. You just don't know it. You're in a war every day. When you head out in that street, you know in the war. It's like the demons are chasing you down. You're just trying to get home. That's why you call on the name of God when you get up in the morning. That's why you call on the name of God when you get out there. Because you need that protection. Even more now than ever. Even more now than ever. You have more power than you think you have. And in this day and time that we're living in, trouble is coming. Trouble's coming. Tell your children, tell your family, tell your spouses, tell your friends. Trouble's coming, but there is a way out. Get that going again. We have to keep saying it. Bishop's already told you what's going to happen with the currency. He even told us before what's happening in this world. People still don't believe it. But 2 or 3, if you have enough power in you, your job is to tell them, warn them. My mama used to say, you can tell everybody the stove is hot, but somebody's still going to touch it. That's what she used to tell my brothers all the time. Showing up, they'll touch that stove. I learned. Mama said, that's hot, I believe you now. well, the heat that's coming now, a lot of people ain't going to be able to escape. And I pray that we're all have a way out and we're able to escape that. And I truly believe that God's going to protect his own. If he says he's already going to protect Israel, I believe he's going to protect us. Now, of course, we may not be able to live the way we live in now, but the fact of the matter is you might get to live. And you're living for a purpose, an unshakable purpose. Because when things go bad in this world, the same way they ran to the churches after they watched that movie in '84, the same way they ran to the churches after 9/11, people may run to you. They may be already running to you. They may be already calling you in the middle of the night. I had someone come into the church one time, and he wouldn't even go past that first door. He said, this church is too real. Why is this church too real and the other ones are not real? Think about it. This church is real, but the other church is this, so he was afraid to come through the door. It's because God showed him something that he knew. And we got to understand it is real. We're real. And we got to show that unshakable purpose right now as we go through this. I don't know what trouble's coming. I don't know who's about to have some personal trouble. Might even be me. I told my brother, I'm tired of going to funerals. We've been having family members after family members die, you know. And it's not the fact that they're dying because I know they're going to be dying. The fact of the matter is I know they're not ready when they die. And they heard it and they still didn't heed to the call. That's what hurts more than anything. And so I tell you today, as we end this, understand your purpose. Understand these things are happening. We're going to start to hear more of this because I truly believe God is going to lay it on Bishop's heart, any other minister's hearts. He's going to have to tell the people his word is, his warning. The warning signs are out there, and it's going to come. And people will say, I'm tired of hearing about that. I'm tired of hearing about the Lord coming. I'm tired of hearing about there's trouble coming. I want to hear about prosperity. I want to hear about the new car you're going to buy and all of that. No, you're not going to hear that from a true church. Because if the people was ready, then we can talk about the things, the blessings of God. But our hearts are not ready. We have to admit it. Some are not ready. And what can we do to get our hearts ready? It starts with us. It starts with me. It starts with me just saying, hey, I love you. God bless you. I hope you got a little something out of here tonight. Remember how strong we're walking. Remember what our time is. Our time is unlimited. Praise you, brother. All right, you doing okay? If you can get prayer, you sure can get prayer. You came to the right place. We were just talking about this. Matter of fact, we all gonna pray for you. No, that's all right.